All hell is breaking loose as top Russian officials from Russia's Duma arrived in the United States after being invited by MAGA Republicans on Capitol Hill, as well as Trump regime officials. These Duma members, basically like the Senate of Iran, they were given Capitol Hill tours by MAGA Republican Congress members. You can see Anna Paulina Luna, a MAGA Republican congresswoman who helped coordinate this trip by the Russian Duma delegation to the United States. She was giving a tour with these Russian Duma members. These are individuals who are supposed to be sanctioned by the United States, but the MAGA Republican Congress members were flaunting their relationship with these Duma members. They were taking photographs with the Duma members and proudly talking about economic cooperation between the United States and Russia. This was also corresponding with Donald Trump's social media posts where Donald Trump was attacking NATO and said, "I will never forget that NATO betrayed us." It also corresponds with Donald Trump's deranged cabinet meeting yesterday where he continued to attack NATO over and over again and said, "I will never forget your betrayal." And Donald Trump attacking Ukraine, attacking Zelensky, and Trump confirming that the United States was removing weapons that were supposed to be given to Ukraine and bringing them to the Middle East at such a critical time for Ukraine. This also follows the Trump regime removing critical sanctions against Russian oil. Russia is making billions of dollars a day now, which they are using to fund their war and their invasion against Ukraine. We know that Russia has been using a lot of that money as well as their resources generally to help provide supplies to Iran, to provide intelligence to Iran about where to target Americans, where to target U.S. military bases in the Middle East. We know that Russia has been providing drones to Iran to use against American military installations. 13 American military installations in the Middle East have now been evacuated because Iran's intelligence, with the assistance of Russia, has been able to target these facilities with the FPV and the Shahid drones. And so the U.S. has evacuated these military bases. So while Russia is materially helping Iran kill Americans and strike American assets and interests in the Middle East, the MAGA Republican Congress members and the Trump regime have welcomed these sanctioned Russia Duma members to Washington, D.C. like they are VIP superstars. I mean, how insane, traitorous, treasonous, in my opinion, it is. You could tell me what your opinion is right here. Here's the photograph of these MAGA Republican Congress members with the sanctioned Russian Duma delegation. Let's just call out these MAGA Republicans by name. You see the photo right here. Congresswoman Luna, Congressman Ogles, Congressmember Eli Crane, Congressmember Gonzalez, and Congressmember Van Orden. And these MAGA Republicans are like bragging about it. They're like, look at me, look what we're doing. I mean, you have MAGA Republican Congressmember Andy Ogles. Today, for the first time in close to 1/4 of a century, 5 members of Congress, bipartisan, met with 5 members of the Russian Duma to discuss peace and bilateral relations. We will continue to foster this dialogue and push for peace in support of the administration's push for peace, as well as economic opportunity. So this whole thing was set up by the Trump regime as well. But can we just take a look, for example, what Iran's president, Pezeshkian, posted on social media in Russian. You see the Russian text right there. They're not hiding the fact that Russia is helping Iran kill Americans and attack American military installations. Russia is the biggest ally of Iran, using the Caspian Sea and other routes to bring the weapons to Iran. I mean, here you have Iran's president, Pezeshkian, posting, "President Putin's messages and the support of the Russian people inspire us in this war." By the way, he's referring there in coded language to the military support that they're getting from Russia. The resistance and courage of the Iranian people promise new bonds that will ensure the security of East Asia through the countries of the region. On behalf of the people of Iran, I thank the government and people of Russia. And this follows the Financial Times article showing how Russia has been providing all of this military support, weapons, intelligence to Iran to go after America. Just take a look one more time at Representative Anna Paulina Luna giving this private tour of the Capitol building to the sanctioned members of the Russian Duma. The Russian Duma delegation was led by Vyacheslav Nikonov. The group is set to meet with the several officials. And then after meeting with the MAGA Republican Congress members, then they went to the State Department and they went all to the top Trump regime leaders. I mean, look at them. They're like partying around. They're at the Trump Institute of Peace, right? On the same day we learned that I think Trump unlawfully moved, close to $2 billion from funding that should go to State Department stuff and actually helping disasters internationally, just basically took it and moved it to Trump's Institute of Peace, which is unlawfully named that. And the Peace Committee and all this, deranged, the Peace Board and all these deranged stuff. As this account says, this is outrageous and unacceptable. Russian Duma deputies are under U.S. sanctions. They support bombing churches and killing innocent Ukrainians, and they supply Iran with intelligence used to kill U.S. soldiers in the Middle East. The only place these people should be traveling to is The Hague. Now, as I said, the arrival of the Duma members corresponds to Trump's post. This is all related, okay? What's happening right here? Who's the main beneficiary of this war in Iran? Russia. America is dismantling day by day the hard-earned respect and power that it had after World War II. It's done. Goodbye. Trump crushed it. Russia's profiting financially, militarily right now, building alliances. As the U.S., we're inviting the people who are killing us. By the way, we removed the sanctions against Iran also. We removed we're in a war against Iran. We're removing sanctions and saying that that's jujitsuing Iran. This is the dumbest and stupidest administration ever, this Trump regime. What the hell are they doing? And it's more than that, right? I mean, it's Russia, 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 because they're actually helping Russia. They're helping Iran. Donald Trump's post yesterday morning was, NATO nations have done absolutely nothing to help with the lunatic nation, now militarily decimated, of Iran. The USA needs nothing from NATO, but never forget the very important point in time. Donald J. Trump, you maniac. You never told NATO you were going to do the invasion. You and Netanyahu went in alone. Netanyahu said, I'm going to do it. You want to join me, Donald? Then you invaded Iran. And then now that you're in a quagmire, you're asking NATO for help. NATO is a defensive alliance, not an offensive invading alliance. And now you're begging NATO to join in an unlawful war where you're blowing up elementary schools and killing little children. And as Russia stepped up to help Iran, you are now inviting the Russian Duma, these sanctioned people, to the United States, and they're getting Capitol Hill tours like they're constituents of these Congress members. I mean, do we all realize how absolutely and utterly deranged this all is right now? Trump's cabinet meeting yesterday, where Trump was like, this has all been one test that I've set up for NATO. And NATO, you failed my test. Remember Trump saying that? Here, play this clip.
This was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to. But if you don't if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. You can never forget.
And then Donald Trump further attacked the UK and NATO and Germany. He attacks every country that's a part of NATO as well. Play this clip.
And I think we've been proven right. They took one missile, went 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous Ireland, the island that the UK was very afraid to give us because they didn't want to get dragged in. But we don't want to get dragged into their wars either. It's one thing, we're very disappointed. I'll say it publicly. We're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said, 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this. They didn't come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated, they said, we'd love to send ships. They actually made a statement, a couple of them, that we want to get involved when the war is over. No, it's supposed to get involved when the war's beginning, or even before it begins. We had the UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. We don't need them.
Now, while all of this is going on too, Donald Trump is preparing to, he's already sent Marco Rubio to Hungary. He's going to send J.D. Vance back to Hungary in order to help Viktor Orban, Putin's puppet there. You see what the relationships that Trump is trying to foster. Trump is a big Viktor Orban fan. Netanyahu supports Orban. I mean, so while you have Zelensky with the drone interceptors, with the wherewithal and know-how how to stop these Russian drones and Iranian drones, Donald Trump continues to go after Zelensky, praise Putin, remove sanctions from Putin, invite the Duma over, treat them nicely while attacking NATO. But ultimately, this is just weakening the United States as well. I mean, look, you got to give credit to Zelensky and Ukraine because they were able to strike the key gas export terminals near St. Petersburg at the Ust-Luga facility. So Ukraine's been very successful with their drone strikes. You can see right here the port of Ust-Luga burning down. I mean, if you think about the amount of success these Ukrainian strikes have had, at least 40% of Russia's oil export capacity, even though now that it's been unsanctioned by the United States, is at a halt following Ukrainian drone attacks and attacks amongst and these drone swarms like this one in the Ust-Luga facility right here. But Zelensky realizes what happened. Zelensky's not stupid. I mean, Zelensky is on the front lines basically fighting for the free world right now. You have Zelensky out there doing it while Trump's attacking Zelensky. So here was Zelensky yesterday basically appealing to Europe, saying, look, in Europe, we need to have the full capacity to produce air defenses and to produce our own drones and to stop ballistic threats. We can't rely on our partners. In other words, Zelensky sees the Russians in the Duma getting the VIP treatment in the United States. By the way, have you seen that covered really anywhere else other than the MeidasTouch network? So here's Zelensky's response. Here, play this clip.
In Europe, we must have full capacity to produce all types of air defense systems and the missiles for them. This includes protection against drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic threats. And we cannot rely on other partners' industries. We must be confident in our own industry here in Europe. Please, let's keep moving this work forward and speed it up. And while we are building this capacity, please remember that we need protection from Russian missiles every single day. And I'm grateful to those of you who actively support us through the Pearl program.
Then Zelensky talks about how grateful he is to his partnership and the partnership status that Ukraine received recently in Oslo with the JEF, the JEF, the Joint Expeditionary Force, this UK-led defense coalition of 10 Northern European nations. And so Zelensky, you can see right here, Zelensky at this point recognizes that the Trump regime, he's recognized it before, is fully captured by Putin. Here, play this clip.
I'm grateful for the enhanced partnership status for Ukraine received in Oslo. The status already opens the door to practical cooperation, like taking part in the terraces exercise. We are ready to move forward, bringing our experience and capabilities to make the JEF community even stronger. And our goal is simple and clear. Ukraine is ready to become a full-fledged member of the JEF.
More from Zelensky here, talking about Ukraine's contribution to security in the Middle East now, and essentially how Ukraine is doing more than the U.S. is basically doing. Here, play this clip.
Our contribution to security in that region will also be a real contribution to global security. This matters because energy security and the cost of living, particularly in Europe, depends on their oil, gas, and other resources and stable global markets. And I believe that in Europe, we need to build more close cooperation between Ukraine, your countries, and all European nations to ensure real protection on land, in the air, and at sea. The key is not only producing new weapons, especially drones, not just technology, but also real experience in using it and integrating it with radars, aviation, and other air defense systems. We have this experience. Together, we have a strong industrial base. You have financial capacity. Let's bring all of this together even more.
Now, one of the things that Zelensky also points out is he says Russia is providing intelligence support to Iran. We have evidence from our intelligence agencies. Russia is doing this while saying we won't provide intelligence to Iran if America stops sharing intelligence with Ukraine. Isn't this blackmail? Absolutely. Russia has been sharing intel regardless, but they are presenting it as a bargaining chip in this game. Could it prompt the U.S. to pause data sharing? Probably. It depends on the conditions in the Middle East and how this operation unfolds. Then you have more from Zelensky talking about how we will respond to every Russian attack. Global pressure on Russia is decreasing. We see changes in sanction policy, referring to the United States. However, unlike everyone else or many others in the world, Ukraine has its own sanctions, long-range capabilities. The Russians must feel pressure. If Ukraine does not respond to their strikes either, Russia will simply continue the war and won't even consider a pause. Zelensky also writes, in historical terms, the Russians are losing 100%. Right now, they are suffering a terrifying number of casualties, 30,000 to 35,000 people a month. Russia cannot keep up with the mobilization, contract recruitment, and certainly cannot keep up with the training of its troops. Will they decide to launch a full-scale mobilization? That I cannot tell. So far, they have been afraid to take such steps and have relied only on offering large sums of money to recruits. Why do we react so sensitively to sanctions being lifted? Because it's about money, and money isn't just tanks. Nobody fights with tanks anymore. Money means drones. Money means people. People mean contracts. And if they don't have the money for contracts, their strength is declining. Powerful interview by Zelensky right there. And Zelensky calling out the United States as well for its behavior as the Duma, the Russian Duma, gets VIP treatment in the United States. I want to pay attention to two other things as well. Number one, German company Quantum Systems now is starting production in Ukraine of the first samples of tactical reconnaissance drones. Twister for the defense forces of Ukraine, as Jay in Kyiv writes, while Americans are being sold to a Russian dictator wholesale, Europe is becoming a tech powerhouse. See how the U.S. is getting left behind and all of that. And I say this as a patriotic American, as someone who loves our country. Loving our country, I believe, is calling out this despicable anti-American regime that's currently in the White House. They're destroying our country piece by piece. And then finally, whether this is happening via the Russians or the Chinese, or Russians working with Iranians and the Chinese together, I don't know. But this is an important story that needs more attention. From March 9th to March 15th, drone swarms were hitting Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. And this Air Force Base is the home of the U.S. nuclear-armed B-52 bombers. And from March 9th to 15th, there were these crazy advanced drone swarms that were all over there. There was loud explosions in the area too, which the Barksdale Air Force Base and U.S. military, which now lies about everything, claimed it was a training mission that was taking place, and that's what you heard. But there were these drone swarms taking place in this Louisiana Barksdale bomber base for the nuclear B-52 bomber. It was these drones wanted to be seen. They came in 12 to 15 groupings of 12 to 15 drone swarms. They had their video cameras on, lights on. I bet you behind the scenes, whether it was China or Russia or Iran, that those videos have been sent, my own view, to the Defense Department or to the State Department or to Trump to say, we can do this at will. We could attack anything, and to send a message to Trump. I have a very strong feeling that those videos were then sent to, I think we'll hear about that what was taken, whether it was being done by Iran, whether it's being done by China or Russia, those videos are being shown and saying, we could have just blown up. Look how close we got to your nuclear bombers. And by the way, I understand that there are some outlets that reported that this happened, but don't you think this is a pretty big deal? You piece this all together. Russian Duma officials getting tours of the Capitol building, meeting with the MAGA Republican Congress members, while Russia is helping Iran kill Americans and destroy American military bases. America has evacuated 13 military bases. Russia is providing Iran with additional drones and targeting capabilities and intelligence. Because remember, Iran was providing Russia with all of that as well to help Russia invade Ukraine. So they have this overt military alliance that they're talking about. Trump's removing sanctions against Russia, removing sanctions against Belarus, removing sanctions against Iran. Just as Russia is losing 30,000 troops a month, Donald Trump is now sending somewhere between 10, 15,000 additional troops in addition to the 50,000 troops already in the Middle East. And there's potentially going to be an invasion of Karg Island there. It's madness that's taking place. And the U.S. is rewarding Russia. Zelensky's out there. You heard what Zelensky said. And then we have these drones, not our drones, some foreign drones, very advanced, going right up to our B-52 nuclear bombers, swarming around them, going around them. They were able to evade kind of anti-drone technology. And that's all happening right now. Right? Just fact. What's happening? So yeah, all hell is breaking loose. Okay. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.